Going up yonder.
Say what?
We're going up yonder. Be with my Lord. Oh, oh. All right, I'm done.
We going up somewhere where she. Okay. What's up, y'all? Back with take 2. Doing what we do, fucking up the place, tripping on wild.
You would think we would learn.
What's up, y'all? I'm Mike Spencer, your Black cultural tastemaker.
What's going on, everybody? It's your girl, the Jasmine Orlandis, and don't forget the D because there's only one me.
And we are
the Triangle Podcast,
home of your story, our story, and the truth. I still cannot.
You can't say it regular because I don't say it regular.
Oh,
it's
man.
catching on. It's catchy, ain't it? I know y'all be saying it while y'all at home, but if you are saying it while you're at home, we would love to see you record yourself saying the intro and send it to us.
Please.
And with that, we might give them something, right, Mike?
Yeah. We you know what?
We're going to give you a t-shirt.
I'm going to give you a little t-shirt. One that says, well, I guess you'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
But whoever has the best video, we're going to post them up. And let us know about maybe a conversation you would like us to talk about.
Yes.
Because what we're about to get into, Jas thinks this is going to ruffle feathers.
I do. So go ahead, Mike. Let them know what the topic of conversation is.
And as you can see, she thinks
today.
that we're going to. So she's like, this was Mike's idea. This ain't my idea.
No, I'm just kidding. It's a great topic that I think, in all seriousness, that is a great topic to hit on. So
for sure.
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. So today what we have is, do you think that Black people play the victim?
It's sad to say, but as a Black person witnessing it from other Black people, I feel like we tend to kind of play that part sometimes. I think we tend to kind of play how oppression has treated us, and we kind of sometimes use it to the best of our ability or feel like we should be treated a different way. Not saying that, and I don't mean that in a way of, like, of course we should be treated equally. Of course, we should. Of course, we should be able to do the same things that everyone else can do and go to the same schools and get the same education and all that good stuff that we are able to do it at this point. But when it comes to, like, give me an example. It's like a lot.
When it comes to,
I don't know.
When it comes to, okay, I'll throw sports out. Does it apply to sports?
I think it applies, yeah. It applies to sports.
How do you think it applies to sports?
I don't know if this is more so like playing the what was it?
The victim.
Playing the victim.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like we get stereotyped a lot when it comes to sports.
So you feel like it's not us who kind of plays the victim, but that they make us a victim?
I feel like we're automatically given the role
of a victim.
Like, I feel like people expect us to say certain things because we're Black. People expect us to do certain things because we're Black.
Do you think that
do we play into it?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I would say willingly. Like sports. It's known that, a great percentage of football and basketball are Black people.
Mm-hmm.
So when little boys and little girls are growing up, well, I guess I should say more so little boys, but we do have a WNBA league as far as basketball. We're like taught you're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, you're going to play sports. You know what I'm saying? Not necessarily taught, but because that's what you see so many other Black people doing as an adolescent, then that's something you pick up that you want to do.
I will say I haven't heard any Black kids say they want to be in genetics. So you're probably right.
Yeah. It's like I said, it's like doctors, lawyers, or a pro athlete. Now I can't say
or an entertainer.
Or entertainment, yes, singer, dancer, actor. But I can say that our horizons have broadened in those avenues. Like, I play golf. A lot of people do. People who know me know that. But I grew up playing golf. Me and my brother were very well rounded in all sports. We did everything. My mom kept us in everything, and even outside of sports, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, different clubs and stuff.
For sure.
But the sport that I took on that I could have went to college for was golf.
Wow.
And a lot of people don't know that. And I was actually one of the first Black females to play golf at William G. Enlow High School too. Little history fact. You know, it's a little history.
Shout out to William G. Enlow.
But yeah, so I think even though that's still a sport, you still don't see a lot of minorities or Black women. They may play golf. I'm not saying there's not. I'm sure there's a lot of professional Black women playing golf, but that's not something that's common.
Yeah.
And then you may see Black skiers and Black. My brother played lacrosse. He was really good, and he went to school for lacrosse. So I think even though they're still sports, they're different avenues of sports.
You bring up lacrosse. That's a good one because. Like, I think his last name was Thomas, Ernie, I think it was Ernie Thomas. He went to Syracuse. He was number 44. He played at Syracuse after Jim Brown left. And he was a better running back. There's a whole movie called The Express on him. And but he played lacrosse. But he could have played with lacrosse and in football. But even again, to your point, like that victim part, you get pulled in so much that he ended up playing the football instead because it's a bigger sport. But there was so much also like money and I guess efforts put in to sports like football versus a lacrosse. You know, it's American sport and all these different kind of things. And, well, I guess baseball is supposed to be American sport, but even I still think that there's more of an emphasis on this basketball and this football.
Yeah. So what's your take on it? Do you think we play the victim?
Do I think we play the victim? I do not think we play the victim.
Okay.
I do think that we are getting in a place where we give up. We're giving up. I think that we don't have maybe the same fight as our ancestors.
Oh yeah.
As a collective group. But I think we're becoming more accepting of like, oh, these are the norms. This is what to expect. Like, you already know when you get a job, they're going to be racist towards you. Like, we have that mindset. And so, whereas I think a lot of times maybe our ancestors, they knew it, but they were still ready and willing to fight against it, like every single day, vocally, and like as bluntly as they could, you know. And maybe it's because the times are different. Like, we don't have a Jim Crow in the same sense where people are just like gonna get lynched. Like Jazz is like, they're like, oh, y'all are podcasting. How dare you? You have Black voices, lynched, you know?
I think we just have gotten too comfortable with, like you said, knowing what we can and can't do.
Sure.
And I think for us, we feel like it's easier to not speak up at times because we don't want to call ruckus and we don't want to be that Black person. We don't want to be that whatever in a career standpoint or in general. If you go out somewhere, people are expecting us to act and do things a certain way. And when we do that, we feel like this generation, we're feeding into what they're expecting out of us already.
And you know what, to that note of, and because some people might listen to this and think like, I'm not feeding into it. I'm going to just put myself into an example. When I deployed and I came back from deployment, I had only been back for like 2 weeks. And I was at the gas station. If you've ever been in Winston-Salem, you understand, like, it's at nighttime, it could feel a little different. You know, you could feel, especially a lot of HBCUs are in, because I went to Winston-Salem State, HBCU, shout out to my school, Go Rank Pride. And a lot of these universities are in the hood or they're in these low-income Black communities. And so I was at the gas station getting some gas for my car. At the time, I had a BMW. And I'm saying that because it all plays a part in how you respond. So I get there, it's nighttime. My ex is in the car with me. And I'm like, okay, so I feel like I had to be protective. Like I had this way, and I'm looking around at all the people that are there, and I'm like feeling like I need to be aware of everything that's here just in case something pops off or something happens. And so I go into the gas station and I could remember how I feel like my body language was. And I don't know if anybody else could tell, but keep in mind, like I just came back from deployment. So the mindset of being aware of your surroundings is hyper aware. Mm-hmm. And I remember like how it was men there. I don't even think there were any women, but they were all like, what's going on, bro? Like trying to dap me up and all. They didn't ask me for no money, for none of that kind of stuff. And it was immediately that mindset of like, yo, I mean, I'm so geared by society, like, cause the military is predominantly white. So for a whole year, the impression of that environment plays a part on you. Mm-hmm. So let's say as a black person, when you're around white people, you take on this persona where you start talking like, hey, Bob, how's it going?
Exactly. That's literally what I was going to say. Yeah.
That whole black consciousness or double consciousness. And so like I feel like we do the same thing around each other too. Mm-hmm. And I
we do.
Exactly. Right. And so like to the point that you made, I 100% think that, I just think that's so true. It's sad, but it's true.
And back to the code switching, like we're so quick. It sucks being minority because it's kind of like automatically instilled in you that you unconsciously do it. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like if I go to work, well, I talk like this at work, but I talk how I'm talking right now at work, mm-hmm. but I may not talk like this around my family members, or I may not talk like this. It may be a little bit more slang in there, and then it's like, well, who created these rules of what's professional and acceptable and what's not acceptable? Because just because I have a little slang in my voice or in my talk or in my walk doesn't mean I'm less knowledgeable or less educated or I don't know what's being talked about in meetings or whatever. It's just I have my own little
way of communicating.
Or style of talking. And then like even with each other, like again, I think I said this in a previous episode, I did not grow up in the hood. I grew up in the suburbs as a black person. So if I go to the hood, I feel like I have to code switch then too and not necessarily play a certain part, but for lack of better words, play a certain part to feel like they're not judging me.
For sure.
Like, oh, she's uppity.
She's an uppity black.
Like, you know what I mean? It's just so weird how that works out. And it's sad that we have to constantly change who we are. Not necessarily who we are, because we're not changing who we are, but how we're perceived, I should say. We're constantly changing how we're perceived.
Fitting a mold instead of creating a mold.
Exactly.
And okay, so to your question, because I didn't answer that, but I don't think that we play the victim also, because to me, a victim is somebody who, it's an imaginary, they're making up a situation that doesn't actually exist. Mm-hmm. Whereas for black people, like we really are behind 400 years. Like there are examples. I can give this example. When Reconstruction era happened, some black people did get the 40 acres in the middle, right? But then you got the Supreme Court coming in that's like, no, we're not going to do that, okay? And then you have people that are Polish immigrants, maybe Irish, whatever, that are quote unquote white or European descent, who get 150 acres when they move to America as an incentive. So you can imagine how that plays a part. I told my friends another example of like one of my jobs when I got out of college. One of my coworkers, during our lunch break, he let his dog out, and I went in his apartment and stuff like that. He had this book, and do you know that the book was his family lineage from like the 1800s.
Oh, wow.
And that his father received the book at the same age that he received the book. And the goal in the family is for them to all exactly read it. And it even has like, it was in whatever his family comes from, maybe it was German, I can't remember, but that it was in another language. Mm-hmm. Like even stuff like that is like, we don't have that because we weren't even allowed to read if you're African American. Right. You know, or if you're African, you might have had your country taken over by the French, then the Spanish. So you've been removed so
many
much
times,
that you don't even get to.
And name switched. You don't even, what was your great grandmother's name?
Right.
Probably wasn't even her real name.
Exactly. And so just little things like, I feel like we've been prisoners of war for so long that we are just now getting to a place where we don't get murdered for having maybe our identity at the same degree that we used to, because now it's on public display when we use our phones. But the difference is that we've been fighting for so long. To some degree, I think we're getting exhausted. A lot of us are born into being exhausted by it. A lot of us are born into, like, our parents not having as much knowledge to share. So, for example, just my last example on this is, I was talking to my boy. Shout out to Devin Laws. I hope one day we do get a chance to interview him. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about North Carolina Central and how it was founded by a black man in 1909. And when I was, how it hit me was the fact that the university is right up the street from my house, like 10 minutes away. Mm-hmm. Like, this one person, when they say be the change you want to be, and I'm sure he has support and family and stuff like that. But the fact that one man that looks like me created a school for me during a time where I couldn't go to school anywhere else because they wouldn't allow me to. And this is right up the street, and people are getting law degrees from this. People, the same things that we're telling kids.
Shout out to my mom. She went to Central.
Hey, shout out to her. Okay, Mom.
Shout out to the Eagles. Yeah, even though I'm not one, but I'll go for Central just because my mom.
Yeah. And when I think about that, and I think about our current, like, maybe the current situation of, like, us giving up, it makes me think that, or being a victim, or whatever, I think about, like, to some degree, there's no excuse, but it's hard too, because there are so many layers to how we get to function before we get to just be a person, you know?
And I think the struggles are different too, and I'm not damn sure not discrediting nothing our ancestors did, because without them we would be nowhere. But I think, like, they fought so hard for us to get here, and we've gotten here, and now there's another barrier, like,
right.
Not necessarily physical, even though there has been plenty of physical examples of us still being treated in a terrible way, but it's all mental now. Mm-hmm. Not that it wasn't before, because it's always been physical and mental, but I think it's shifting, like, it's more mental than physical now. And that's playing a role in us, and that's playing a role in our mental, and that's playing a role in our money, and you know, different pay grades, and women getting paid different, black women getting paid different, black men getting paid different, roles and careers, where you live in your communities, where you grow up and what you learn, what schools you go to, what classes you're able to take. I remember going to Carnegie Middle School, and to me it seemed like it was a magnet school. Carnegie's a magnet school. In the middle of the hood. But all these white people are sending their in love too, a magnet school. But all these white people are sending their kids to these schools because of all the programs and all the electives and things that they have to offer to make their child well-rounded. And it's like, we were in teams, and it seemed to me that to make the parents comfortable, not that these white kids were smarter than these black kids going to these schools or anything, but it seemed like all the white kids ended up on the same team. And this team was the academically gifted team. And they may have their sprinkle of 3 or 4 black kids on the team, but from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, they had the AGT. And that's where all the white kids were, who went to the school, they were on these teams. And I'm not saying there were no white people on the other teams, but majority, you know what I'm saying, of the gifted kids are white. Look, as I got older,
and this
even
is in the hood again, like you said.
And this is in the hood. And it's like, I'll send my child there if they're taking these classes. Right. I'll send my child there if they're on this team.
Right.
I'll send my child there if they're able to take advantage of this. But I think that's funny, and being older and realizing that now it hits different because it's like, wow, like I really went through that. And I could have been on the AG team. I was supposed to be on the quote unquote AG team in my 7th grade year, and I don't know what happened with it. I can't recall. I'm sure if I asked my mom, she'd be able to tell me why. But everything that I was doing was in accordance to the guidelines of the AG team. Why wasn't I on that team? You know what I mean? Like stuff like that.
Crazy.
That it's like already systematically in our school systems and everyday life that we're supposed to feel as if we're lesser. We're supposed to look as if we're lesser. We're supposed to look as if we're not as smart because of X, Y, and Z.
And I think that's the reason why I feel that's what makes it hard for me to even believe that like you can't be a victim of something that you're already kind of put into a position of you're being attacked. You can't be a victim and be attacked at the same time, you know. But I do agree, it's a mental thing to where it even makes you think like, am I being attacked? Maybe it is my fault. And I feel like that's all a part of the whole tactic, the whole, it's evolved past, like, we still talking about stuff. And again, like, that's that 400 years head start. We're still talking about things like slavery to where the issues that we have now, we can't even, I don't even think we're getting into things like the disparities in heart. There are people, but I mean, as a mass majority of 15% of the United States population, I don't think we're all caught up to what housing, the red zoning and things like gentrification. Yeah, we talk about it, but to a point where we are combating it together. You know, I don't think that we've gotten into that.
Not necessarily funny, but ironic that a lot of us are like pro-black, and then when we get to where we are deemed in our eyes as successful, that's why gentrification happens so much, because like I was talking to, we don't stay home, we don't try to fix our own neighborhoods, we don't try to fix our own communities. And I'm not saying all of us do, but it's just common for once we get a little change, we move out to the suburbs or move somewhere that's deemed as nicer. Like moving from Southside Raleigh to Briar Creek or something like that, just for example, because it's nice over there, instead of buying some land and building up the community that you were in. So that way when it's time for these white people, quote unquote, or government or state to come in and take your house or whatever, you're not having to do that.
And you know what? We have a clip that we can show from Trevor Noah talking about that from one of our previous Motivational Mondays. So check this out.
I hope you went to Soweto when you were there, but if you didn't...
I did go to Soweto when I went.
Soweto is a township in South Africa. Fundamentally one of the biggest hoods in the world. That's what it was created as.
Right.
It was designed by the apartheid government to be destroyed as quickly as possible should the black people rise up.
They just wanted people who were working to
and
come
that's
and
what
have
it
a
was.
place.
It was like, how do we get black people to live in a space that's close enough to the city that they can come work, but not so close that they can just walk here and visit us when we don't want them to. That community has continued to become a bastion of like growth, where like the first black owned mall in South Africa built and owned was in Soweto. Like you look at how houses have, like people did what you're saying. One dude became rich and he was like, I'm not leaving. I'm going to build a nice house here.
And that's what we need
And
to
then
do.
another person was like, well, then I'm going to build a nice house. And I'm going to build a nice house. And I'm going to build a nice... And I do think there's something inspiring about that.
It is.
There's something inspiring about going, man, everyone goes, I got to get out of the hood. And I get why. I get why you sometimes even need to do that. But there's also something about beautiful saying, no, I'm going to get the hood out of here.
Yeah. Or transform your neighborhood with your resource.
Right.
Yeah.
Block by block, block by block.
Which I think is something that's happening now. But I do.
It is slowly happening.
Yeah.
It really is slowly happening. And that's something that I appreciated when people do that. You know, is just finding a way to infuse resources into their community and go like, no, let's take the money and put it back in. Let's put it back in. Let's put it back in. Let's build ourselves up as well. Because two things are happening at the same time. My mother always says this to me. She goes, while you are fighting to receive what you deserve from your government or from your world, you also need to be fighting to give it to yourself.
Right.
Two things are happening at the same time. And I think as the black community, yes, we should always be fighting for equality and equal access to resources because we are taxpayers. You get what I'm saying? It's not like we're second-class citizens in any way, shape, or form. So you should be fighting for the things that you deserve. But at the same time, we must remember to fight to give it to ourselves.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You've got two different spaces where it's like, yeah, you've also got a bit of personal responsibility. There's no one thing that exists in isolation.
I hope you guys enjoyed that clip and got something from it. But someone who's also doing something similar to that is Akon. Akon is building his own city, his own town, and slowly going to function. It's going to be called Akon City. I'm pretty sure.
Senegal.
And they're going to have their own banks. They're going to have their own doctor's offices. They're going to have their own businesses. They're going to have literally his own city with his own stuff. And I think that is amazing to do. That is amazing.
It's pretty funny you bring that up because the other day I Googled to see if you could buy your own city in America. And you can't because the city would have to basically remove its own charter. And ultimately it wouldn't be a city anymore, so technically you couldn't do that. But I still wondered, I said, what if you did it all like instantly? Like what if it all turned over just like that? And then it was recharted in your name and then you owned it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the other point it was making is you could buy the property and own all of it, but
it ain't really yours.
Yeah, it ain't no
we can come
Raleigh
take it
is
at any
mine.
time.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically. We still got our hands on it.
Yeah. And
we let you borrow it.
I think you could become like sovereign or something like that. I don't really know much about any of that, but I thought about it because I was like, what if I make enough money
and buy a city?
I'll buy one of these hoods and make it mine.
We gotta see how much money it costs to do that because I'm pretty sure it's not cheap. And Akon is actually gonna be here sooner than we think. I mean, I know when he was on the Breakfast Club, I think he said like 10 or 15 years from now.
That is so far out.
It is, but it's not.
It's not. You're right.
To build a whole city, that's really not that long.
Because to put it in perspective, Drake was on Billboard 100 for almost 10 years, and technically it is 10, but they didn't give him the credit with Sicko Mode. But he was on the Billboard 100 for 10 years, and look, we seen Drake all through his whole
10
time.
years, and it don't even feel like it.
It don't.
So I mean, time really flies.
Because we about to be 30. Well,
don't put that on me.
But I'm definitely.
Nah, but it's creeping up.
Yeah.
It is creeping up.
You don't want to be 30, Jas.
I do. I pray the Lord that I can make it way past 30 and functioning.
But you ain't no rush to get there.
Listen. This is what Russian got you, bills.
Yeah, okay.
Russian got you bills. And Russian got you to learn
bills
how to be an
before
adult.
you got money to pay for the bills.
Okay?
Yeah,
Period.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I rushed to want to be an adult. I see how that turned out.
Okay.
So I'm not rushing nothing else. I don't want to. If I could go back, I could before I went forward. That's another story. That's another story for another day. But yeah, I just think that I'm glad you brought up the topic of thinking that we can play the victim. But one more question to spin off of that. Like, do you feel like, not necessarily play the victim, but do you feel like, and I don't want y'all to feel like I'm like going against the grain or anything.
No, make them feel like that, Jas.
But
the truth.
I feel like there are some Black people who overdo blackness when it's not needed.
So,
Like I can't really, I guess I should back that up with an example. Like playing the race card when race has nothing to do with it. You know what I mean?
is there a situation where race really has nothing to do with it?
I mean,
So like, okay, I guess.
like say you did something wrong and you really did do it.
But you get caught for it.
But you get caught for it.
Yeah.
And you know you did it.
Yeah.
But you're gonna play the race card.
Yeah.
Oh, you think I did it because I'm black?
Even,
like those type of situations.
To that example that you gave, I've even seen like when police brutality was at its height, a few years ago, it was a guy, and you see in the video that this police officer is making him get out the car and all of this stuff, and they're like, yo, he has a kid in the car, like, why are you doing this? And he didn't get shot, but the police officer was really aggressive, right? So the backstory on that was he was doing 125 on the highway, and so that's reckless driving. The police officer saw that he had somebody in the car, And the way the video started, it made it seem like the police officer wasn't like, hey, you know, you were speeding. He had to chase him down for like a long
That's
time.
why he treated it.
Yeah. And so then he was like, what are you doing? Like, get out of your car. He tried to be like, you know, professional, not making it escalate. And the guy was like, why should I get out of my car? Why do I have to? Yeah. And so then the video conveys it as if it was the black guy was in the right when he was in the wrong the whole time. And the dude was just trying to give him a ticket for speeding.
I think with us, it's like those things like, you can't talk about my brother, but I can talk about my brother. That's how we play that card. We can fight each other. We can beat each other up all day. We can kill each other all day. And I'm saying that in relation to gangs and all that type of stuff. But if you do it, if the opposite does it, it becomes a problem. And it's like, really?
I'll say.
Really?
I think we perpetuate the victim role. Instead of us trying to fight against being a victim, we allow the fact that we are a victim just be the norm. Like, and so why do we even put ourselves in certain situations that we shouldn't even be in? And then now, on top of that, you want to add race to it when you should be focused on other things to be fighting against being a victim at all. Like, that adds fuel to the fire. And what it does is it perpetuates the stereotype at all. But again, it's like, the fact that this system, the only way I could think about it is, are people who are not being attacked as a victim in the way that we are, do they do the same thing?
Right.
And I don't know the research on that, but from what I haven't heard, I don't hear this, it doesn't seem the same.
I've seen a video, I forget what class it was in, but I was taking a class in college and we were watching this video. I really forget. It was like a documentary. But anyway, to get to the point, it was showing like the crimes that black people were doing and the crimes that white people were doing, the same crimes. But the white boy, and he even said it himself, he was like, because I am white, I do feel like I get off easier. I've done this crime several times and I'm always getting off. And then you have this black guy over here who's doing the same crime and he's getting time for it. So I think in I feel like situations like that cause us to act the way we do. Because it's like, are you serious? I know you're doing your job for one. And I know but then it's kind of hard because it's like
Karen.
It is hard because you don't want to stereotype all officers into the same category, because there are some really great officers who take their job seriously and treat everyone the same. And you may just be the officer that got caught up in that one situation. You're not racist. You're not biased. You're just doing your job. But this individual feels like you're targeting them. And I feel like I can see both ends of the spectrum. I can see how the black person feels because we're always targeted. And that's the first thing, even if I get arrested right now today, the first thing that's going to pop in my head is, you stopped me because I'm black. I feel like that's any black person. But I could have really been doing 80 down the highway. You know what I'm saying?
But the thing is like, could you let me go? Or do you treat everybody this way?
Yeah.
And that's the thing, and because
it sucks because we don't know. We don't know that particular officer.
But to your point, you said again, okay, so if this is a system, right, overall it's supposed to protect and serve, so there's supposed to be justice for everybody. But if I hear a story about Johannes got off and I didn't, no matter if he's black, white, green, blue, I'm gonna feel like that's not equity. Right? And that's what I was about to ask you is, what do you think the solution is? Like, what do you think we should be, in your opinion, fighting to accomplish so that way we can get out of the role as a victim, or get out of the mindset of like responding to things the way that they seem they should be, the way that they should be? So
I honestly don't think there's an answer to that, because I feel like we've tried everything. You know what I'm saying? We've tried to comply and we still get hurt. We try to protest and we still get hurt. We try to fight and we still get hurt. Like, it's like an ongoing cycle, like, damned if I do, damned if I don't. I've seen so many videos, and even though we don't know the back end, like that one video, but even some videos where, like that whole Miami breakout video where the kids were there for spring break and all these officers started coming out. Granted, I wasn't there. I don't know the situation, but some of it just seems like, y'all know this happens every summer. This happens every spring break. This happens. Kids come to Miami, they party, then you get more visitors and things from out of town at this certain time. So you would think they would be a little bit more lenient unless they really see something going on. But when these videos broke out that these officers were like tackling girls and throwing them to the ground, pushing their heads into the cement, and doing all these things to these kids, it's like, for what? What are they doing? And then these kids would have their backs to them, so you can't say that they're a threat. They're walking away. They're doing what you're telling them to do, and you're still taking that extra mile to hurt them. And it's like, like you said, that's the question. What do we do? And I think it's a day-to-day process. I don't think that's something that we would ever figure out. Wow. I don't think that there's an answer to that question.
Wow.
Because if we knew, we would do it and it would work. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know.
I guess on the flip side, for me, you're right, we don't know. We may never know in our lifetime. I don't even know if our ancestors even knew, or did they just fight?
But what we do know is that fighting does get you somewhere.
Exactly.
They did it.
Exactly.
You know
and that's
and we do know that things can change.
Exactly.
How or when, we don't know.
And I personally, I feel like that's with the current state we're in right now, that's the best solution. Somebody asked me, they said, if we could all choose one thing to have, like as Black people, what would you choose, or what should it be? Would you choose to have all of the resources that we all need, the knowledge that we need, or the economic power that we need? And I was like,
it's a hard question.
And for me, I was just like, I think it would be wisest to have the knowledge, because what good would it be to have the resources if you don't know what to do with it? And what good is it to have the money
power,
if you don't know how to spend it? So you might as well, at least if you know how to obtain all of it, and how to move in these situations, and how to protect yourself, how to build a house, how to do whatever you need to do to sustain as a community, and the fact of togetherness, because I feel like that will fall under the knowledge part, then you at least have a better chance, I think, of ultimately getting where you want to go. But who's to say that it would be that simple, right?
Who's to say? But I also think, and last point, we get treated the way we do because it's out of fear. They're fearful of us. You know,
and that's what
they're fearful. They see where we were and they see where we are now, and they're like, holy shit. Like, they could really do something if they wanted to, and that's why
we get treated. So you think they just fear that we're going to do the same thing to them? Or
not necessarily fear that we're going to do this. I feel like our hearts are bigger. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We're not really wanting to get revenge. We're just wanting to be equal.
Or have our own peace.
Own peace. Like, y'all over there, we're cool. I mean, stay over there, we're over here, we're good. But we don't
stay over there.
Stay over there, we're over here. We're good. We're not trying to cross your barrier, but you keep trying to come over here. Yeah. We're good over here. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I think they're just fearful that if we continue to educate ourselves, if we continue to put money back into our own communities, and we continue to, I feel like it's constantly going to be a way for them to keep us down. And
it's crazy you say that, because my best friend was saying that she thinks that we have the power already.
I damn sure believe that.
And she said
we just don't know how to utilize it.
Exactly, and that's it, exactly. And we don't know how to use it. We already have the power. And then when she said that, it really opened my mind, because I said, if we didn't, they would have eliminated us a long time ago.
Yeah, we would have been weak.
You know what I'm saying? Exactly. Or maybe they wouldn't have eliminated us, because they just was like, we don't want to do the work.
We can't be eliminated.
Yeah.
And that's what they're trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Like, how do we? And what's even more crazier now is soon it won't be any of them. All these biracial, mixed, and not even black and white. It's just so many different races coming together and creating life, and soon it will be no more. Like, you know what I'm saying?
But you know what? At the same time, the new norm, you know, if you look at other societies that look the same, they still have classism.
Yes,
and I think...
But I feel like it will no longer be race. It will be...
It won't be race.
Social, it'll be economical, it'll be financial class,
which
but
makes
not
me
race.
think, on that note, maybe the solution to me in thinking about it, and I think, and one major point is that, like, we're black, right? And you're a black woman, and I'm a black man. but that I can support your fight as a Black woman for the injustices you face. And you can support the fight that I have as a Black man for the injustices there are some that are just specific to me, but that we all are in a position to fight whatever injustices we face. But the idea to go ahead and feel like everybody should fight our own injustices for us, rather than just doing what they can to support us from their vantage point and us doing the same, to me, I think that's more along the lines of like injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. And I think that, to me, fits more of the solution, is focus on the fact that there's injustice, fight against the fact that there's injustice, and by way of maybe there won't be as much classism, or we can go ahead and get a jump on it before it ever gets there. Because that, to me, would be that's the biggest fear that I personally have for my great-great-great-grandchildren, because, you know, like you said, that mixing is going to happen. Mm-hmm. And when it does, I would hate for them to have to grow up in a world where everybody looks the same, but some people still aren't good enough. Just even though we look exactly the same, the fact that maybe your dad got a Tonka truck and, you know, you got a stereo and that ain't in right now. So the fact that you got that, hey, sorry, you're at the bottom of the barrel. I don't think I think equity, you know, that picture of there's a short kid, tall kid, medium kid, when the short kid is standing on top of a box, you know, the taller kid can see over the fence. The other kid, because he was, you know, close to the height, what they did was change the height of the fence a little bit. You know, stuff, he climbed on the fence, whatever, like things like that. I think when we begin to look at it from that perspective, because we're Black, but there are people who are handicapped, and they all we got is stairs in the world, and they need wheelchairs. Mm-hmm. That don't help them at all, you know, right. But that's still a level of injustice, but it's not necessarily for me to go and fight to make a bunch of escalators or something. So much as it is when they say that's unfair, I need to support the fact that they're saying it's unfair. Right. You know what I'm saying?
And that's what we don't get.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we don't get.
Yeah.
We're just saying this is unfair, understand us, but we're constantly getting, no, you just want to...
There's a lot of pushback.
it turns back on... They still make it about them. Like Black Lives Matter. But all
lives matter.
Oh, right. We're not saying that all lives don't matter, but in this time, we need to focus on the Black lives. Mm-hmm. Just like with the whole Karen thing that's going around. Yeah. Karen, that's just like saying the N-word. There's no comparison. We're comparing a person that's like a Karen. We're just saying that if we call you a Karen, that means you have the characteristics to do this, that, and the third. Mm-hmm. We're not saying you need to all be more Karens
is what you need to do. You
right.
need to be more Karen.
Be Karen, not be a Karen. We're just comparing you, like on the Real, they talked about it and how it shouldn't even be compared to the end. It just baffles me
really like
how they want to feel. It's like they almost want to feel how we feel at times. They want to get a gist of what we've been through, but they will never
But I feel like they want to be able to say that they feel oppression to negate the fact that we
we've
have
been oppressed.
Exactly.
For sure.
Not to actually go through it.
Right, we don't want to go through it, but we understand what you've been through because this has happened.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
exactly.
That's not even at all. Exactly. Even though we physically didn't go through it,
we still reap the benefits.
We still reap from what?
Yeah, exactly.
Even though we didn't get a slash on our back or hung on a tree, doesn't mean we don't know what it feels like because we go through it every day. From the minute we're brought into this world, we go through it. So it's crazy. It's just crazy.
Okay, exactly. Look, we could go
on and on about this for sure.
But exactly, and I think the main driving point is like, you know, what I would like people to walk away from this is really be mindful of the fact, because I hope we have the conversation eventually about what victimization looks like in terms of women in sexual assault, men in sexual assault. And the idea of being a victim is, you know, you're in an inferior position, and that listen to people when they say that they feel or they're going through a situation and you're antagonizing and attacking them. That's what I really want to come from it, and that when we do listen, we make an effort to, again, support. If you can jump in the fight, but don't negate somebody else's experience that's saying, hey, you're not treating me equitably, because equality is fair opportunity to obtain the same things, and during that, there shouldn't be created barriers and obstacles that stop one another from getting there. You know, I've never been a fan of, like, if you're gonna race, don't be cheating, bro.
Yeah.
Don't be doing that.
Don't cheat, just don't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Do what you can, and what you can is what you do. Don't.
Ooh, let them know, Jazz. Do what you can, and what you can is what you do.
Yes.
Y'all
And
hear
that's
that?
it, and that's all.
Hope you enjoyed this.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please let us know in the comments below what you think and how you feel as a Black individual, minority, whatever you are out there. Give us your opinion on what we discussed today. And until next time, peace.
If you would like to see more of us,
Please click the link in our bio or visit our YouTube channel.